Hey, it's me, AP, and welcome to the first edition of the Saturday Movie Show with myself. And this is a new thing I'm going to be doing, and hopefully, I'll be doing it more so every Saturday. Hence the name Saturday Movie Show, and I'm sure the title of the show will change over time as well. It's a work in progress. The name probably will be changed, but today, on the first edition of the Saturday Movie Show, I want to discuss a very important topic related to movies, and that is the closure of cinemas. And I wanted to make this the first topic because it's so important at this moment in time. In the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, and this week we've had some huge news, some really huge news in regards to cinemas. So here in the UK, Cineworld has closed its doors. They're saying it is a very much a temporary thing at this moment in time until like next year. But how do we know this is going to be just a temporary thing rather than like a long term thing for cinemas? Cineworld also is linked. I believe it's owned by the same company as Regal in the US, and they have done the same thing. So on the Thursday of this week, we closed our Cineworld cinemas, and on Friday in the US yesterday, all the Regal cinemas closed as well. And this comes as well with here in the UK we have Odeon cinemas. They're now going to weekends only. So I imagine lot more cinemas are probably going to follow suit with this and do the same thing. They're either going to go to limited viewings and limited days, or they're just going to completely, do a temporary shutdown of cinemas until it's more profitable for them as businesses. So, I mean, the main reason behind this is COVID has caused a storm within the world, but with businesses, it has really caused a huge effect as well, just as huge as you know as it is to everything else. There's I can talk about life, I can talk about the loss of life, and it is awful. But I mean, I want to talk about businesses, and it's obviously nowhere near as awful as death, but uh, it's still bad because the economy is so important. We lose the economy, we will just go to zero. We'll go to dust. It will just fade. It will turn into times like the world will become like an Escape from New York, Hunger Games world if the economy falls flat on its backside. So the fact that like we're seeing businesses close is very terrible for us as people. It's not great. But when we see things, companies, organizations like cinemas falling apart, cinemas are so ingrained in our lifestyles. It's part of our community. Name me a person who doesn't go to the cinema even once a year. Everyone does it. Everyone enjoys cinema, and it's been for me as a guy in my late 20s. It's been the all throughout my life cinemas. So the idea of them shutting down is just it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm into live sports as well, and when I see packed out stadiums being just no one there, I find it really bizarre. And now we've obviously had cinemas empty, but now they're just going to be completely shut. Some of them, which is not great. It's not great at all. So you know the main reason behind this, obviously, we've had this. We're in this pandemic now, COVID still, and it's still continuing. And we had cinemas close initially at the start of this pandemic, worldwide mostly, and then they shut, reopened when the summer hit a bit, and Tenet was released. It was looking like things were getting better, but now we're starting to get the closures again because we're getting that rise in the COVID cases again, and the death tolls are going up again. Especially here in the UK, we're getting it. We're getting the death tolls are going up, especially here in the northwest and the Midlands way. I'm sure people who are watching this around the globe probably don't know what I mean when I say the Midlands or the northwest, but it's just the northwest of England and the Midlands, like your Birmingham's areas. Nottingham is being hit pretty badly with it here in the UK, but Manchester, Liverpool are big areas that are getting hit badly by cases of coronavirus. So we have seen fully in the UK, Cineworld, probably one of the biggest chains in the UK, shutting down temporarily. And the reason is, it's been reported this week, this past 2 weeks, it is about the James Bond film, the No Time to Die. And, this was going to be a big movie for cinemas. It was going to be a massive one being released in November, I believe. And it got delayed. So it's been delayed now till next year. The list of movies which have been delayed is crazy. We've had like the new Fast and the Furious movie. We've had Dune, or however you want to pronounce it, was due to be released on Christmas Day, I believe. That has now been delayed till October of last year. As I said, 007, No Time to Die. We've had countless Marvel movies. I think the Black Widow movie that was due to be out, and that's been delayed again. I think Wonder Woman 2 is still scheduled for a December release at this moment, but I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with that? I'm just going to, as I said, this video is going to be a bit different than normal videos. I'm going to do less video editing as well. Just a little side note. I'm going to drink some coffee during this video. And you will see countless scratches of the mustache as well, because it's fallen in my mouth. But I've got my coffee cup here. I am your father, Darth Vader cup. And I've got some decaf coffee in this as well today. So I'm just going to have a sip of coffee throughout making this video as well, because I'm a bit parched here. That was my first coffee sip of the video. So yeah, it's maddening to see all these films delayed, and they sort of said it's been reported, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, was the new Bond movie being delayed. And the way it was in the UK press this week, it's like all the problems were laid upon by this delayed movie of James Bond. And I think the real, the true fact of all this, the realism of all this is the movie theatres, the cinemas over here and across the world were failing anyway. They were struggling massively with the whole COVID pandemic, and, having just one more movie being delayed probably didn't decide it. I think a lot of this, with Cineworld and Regal, I think that the decisions were made long before the announced delay of the James Bond movie as well. And it is sad to see it. Like I said, I like going to movies. I'm more of a home movie guy. I like watching movies at home more so. But a new Star Wars movie comes out or a new Marvel movie, I'm there at the cinema watching it. I enjoy that experience of watching movies at the cinema. It's a nice special event when I do it. I probably do it maybe 2 to 3 times a year. But when I go and see a movie, I love it, and I love that experience of going and seeing movies at the cinemas. So not having it here now, being temporarily, I've not been since the pandemic all started. I've not been this year actually to the cinema. I think the last movie I've seen was either probably Star Wars, the Rise of Skywalker, I believe. And I've not been this year. I've not felt comfortable in going to the cinemas since this pandemic and since the cinemas have reopened. I just don't feel, for me, I don't want to take the risk. And I think, it's obvious, sitting in a cinema, circulated air, it's probably not a great idea. And that's why a lot of people have got that same thought process. They're looking at it and saying, I think I value my health more so than watching a film. But it is not great. And it's going to be interesting going into 2021 to see what happens now, because we've got a good few months of a winter. We've not really started the winter fully yet, and depending on how things go with the virus, I suppose it's dependent on that's where cinema falls then. Because as I say, you've got Wonder Woman 2 is the last sort of major big blockbuster movie that's not been delayed at this moment in time, and I have no doubt. I think that as much as Patty Jenkins has said, she said it will be released in cinemas. She come out this week because it was reported that Wonder Woman 2 would be released streaming and at limited cinemas or available cinemas on Christmas Day. and or around the December mark, I believe. But and she come out then and said, "No way, no way! It's not going on streaming. It's definitely going to cinemas." I think she probably jumped the gun there because if it does get released in cinemas this year in December, Wonder Woman 2, this massive blockbuster movie that's had probably a massive £200 million budget, I imagine. That film is not going to make the money it needs to be making because we're looking at December. It's October now. 2 months time. You know, I'm not a fortune teller, but the way the scientists are all saying on TV, things are going to get worse. They're not going to get any better at this moment. So if things are going to get worse come December time, how how are people going to imagine going to the cinema? Who will want to go to the cinema? The cinemas, the majority of them around the world, are still 25% capacity level. And add to the fact that people will be just scared to go to the cinemas, it's not going to make the money. So Wonder Woman 2 is either going to be delayed till next year, and it probably will be delayed within the next week, no, most likely, or it will do the, it'll be put out to cinemas available at the time to watch at, and it'll be streamed at the same time, similar to what Witches is doing. The Witches is coming out this month, and I think it's released on Halloween this month. But it's available in cinemas that are open, and for cinemas, and then for the rest of the people who can't get to the cinemas, it's going to streaming on HBO Max, which I think is a fantastic idea. And you could say we don't really know what the profit margin was for Mulan that was released on Disney Plus. Now that's going to VOD as well, video on demand. We don't know how much money that exactly made because Disney are keeping things close to the chest at this moment in time, but I think moving forward, I think that is the only way that film companies are gonna make the money, and I think they're gonna have to look at it like I think a lot of film companies now are sitting there and sitting around a big table and discussing, how long can we delay movies? Because they can't just keep on delaying movies because then they want to make more movies and make the profit from the ones they've already made. It's going to come to a point where they will have to just release movies, and they need a viable option that is safe and where they're going to also make the money back and profit from them movies as well. So they're going to maybe streaming at this moment in time isn't as profitable, but maybe over time, say over 2 to 3 years, putting movies directly out on streaming at the same time as cinemas could be profitable and it could rise. So I think that is definitely being discussed. There's no way big film companies are saying to themselves, "Oh, we're just gonna hope. We're just gonna hope that cinemas will recover by next year." Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of cinemas will probably be out of business by this time next year. If no films are being released, and if they're not getting the relevant support from the governments, it's going to be hard for these businesses to keep afloat, and that is what's going to happen. They're just going to go out of business. I think for me, the way I foresee cinemas going 2021 and beyond is I think they're going to be very much niche, like a niche sort of community. It's similar to physical media and sort of like movie collecting in a way. I'm big on movies. I enjoy collecting the movies I collect. But I do think movie collecting now and physical media collecting has become very niche. It's a niche community. It's a niche sort of hobby to have. It's not like years ago where you just go out and buy a DVD. I don't think people do that anymore. And same with like 4K or Blu-rays. So I think, we're going to get a lot of smaller cinemas. Around where I live, there's a lot of smaller cinemas, Cineworlds, and then I have a Real Cinema here in the UK. A lot of them are closing down, and I think a lot of them probably won't ever reopen again. Some of them have already announced where I live that they're not reopening certain ones now. So I think what you're going to get is you're going to get like your big cities, like here in the UK, like Manchester, Liverpool, London, Leeds. They're going to all start. I think once maybe things have got better, I think the bigger chains will have like the large cinemas in the large cities. But in local towns, smaller towns, I think you're going to get them cinemas just being non-existent, and then I think that's the way it's going to be moving forward. And I think a lot more people will then be like, they have to travel out to go to the cinema in future, and it will slowly just become this niche activity that you do. And I think that is the way, cinemas are going to move forward. And I do hope that cinemas will always be there. And I think they will always be there, like physical media in some capacity, but I think it will be limited to what we know cinemas to be now. And I think streaming, releasing movies on the same day as cinemas is definitely going to be at the forefront of what movies are going to be released in the future. I think that's the way it's going to go. And I think it's the only way that big movie companies can do it to be profitable moving forward. Now it's time for another coffee sip. And while I look at my notes, so as I said, near myself, we have a Cineworlds. We have quite a few Cineworlds. And in my town, Widnes, we have a cinema called Real Cinema. To my knowledge, Real Cinema, they've not got, getting tongue twisted, they've not got that many in the UK, but I believe that they have closed the one in my town. That's what I've been told anyway. But I don't know moving forward whether they will do the same thing as what Cineworld's done, whether they'll just temporarily close the cinemas or whether they'll just try and see what happens, see if they can, we're seeing a lot now. I seen it like Akira has been released. They're doing a lot of like these older films being re-released at the cinemas, but I mean, how long can that last? And I suppose it can last forever, but I mean, is it sustainable? Are they going to make the money off movies like that compared to newer movies? And I don't think they will. People have seen these movies before. Maybe it's a bit of nostalgia sometimes, but overall, I imagine the profits have just dipped compared to new releases of movies. Let me grab my notes. Like I said, the Saturday Movie Show it's a new show, and it's got some kinks in it. It's got some coffee in it. It's got some note catching in it. But I'm gonna get there eventually. I'm gonna make a great show. Maybe we'll get some cool graphics later on in future episodes, or maybe I'll take this show live in future episodes and more longer episodes. But another thing I wanted to discuss and sort of like finish this as the last topic of the video, because I seen an article in I think it was The Guardian here in the UK, and it was, the tagline was something like, Tenet was meant to be the saviour of movie theatres, but it's the nail in the coffin of cinemas, really. And I didn't really read the article, I only read the headline, and to take from that sort of suggestion that Tenet is similar to the Bond movie, that it's been the nail in the coffin. With Tenet, you can look at it differently, because you can think, Tenet has made money, but it's not made near enough money. I think most movies need to double the budget. So if you have like a £200 million movie, it's got to make 400 million to just break even, and anything after that is profit then. But when it comes to Tenet, it's been successful, but it's not been nowhere near. I don't think it's even broke even with what it should have done. So with Tenet now, you've got this movie a lot of cinemas reopened because they thought, yeah, this is going to breathe fresh life into cinemas. And you know what? It sort of did for a bit, but then obviously we've had this collapse of movie theatres, and cinemas now all closing doors again. And maybe Tenet was a bit of a lifeline, but it was and maybe some cinema owners are cursing Tenet in a way, because it was like, I think they thought it was going to be a lot more successful, and I think they thought maybe more people were going to go to cinemas, and probably a lot more people. They probably thought more people were going to go than actually they did go, and I think they probably not made half as much money as they wanted to make with Tenet, and it is a shame because, Christopher Nolan's movies are great, and I'm sure it is a good movie when I see it. I think it's been released on digital and Blu-ray and 4K in December sometime. But was it the nail in the coffin? and you can look at it and say, yeah, it probably is, because a lot of these cinemas thought this is going to be the success we need to boost our cinema sales, and it done it sort of for a bit, but then no one else was releasing more movies because they looked at Tenet and seen it wasn't making the money that it should be making. And that's made all these other companies now go to say, "Oh, I'm gonna throw it on streaming, or I'm gonna delay this movie until next year because I know a big movie like that should be making a massive amount of money, and because it's not, there's no way my movie's gonna make anywhere near that money. So let's not release it. Let's just take a lesson and say, Tenet was a failure in a way at the box office. We as a company don't want to release our movies the same way because our movies are just going to fail just as bad as Tenet did." So, I mean, I think really it is, it was good of, I think, is it Warner Brothers? I think Warner Brothers released Tenet, and Christopher Nolan was very adamant on it being released as well. Good on them for trying and reignite that spark of cinema. But I think the odds were always stacked against them. With 25% capacity, that's always going to be very hard to make profit margins higher. And with the the looming threat of a second wave of COVID, it was just, I suppose it was doomed from the start of reopening cinemas. And this is where we're going to go into 2021, because 2021 is going to be a very interesting year to see if cinemas can recover. And I hope they do. I hope they do recover. But if anything to take from Tenet's release, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a tough ride for cinemas moving forward, and who knows? It's going to be a weird one. 2021 is going to be. 2020 has been a weird year for movies, a weird year for life, and it's changed the landscape of movies. But 2021, I think we're going to see where movies go moving into the future, and where we go forevermore with movie releases. I hope you enjoyed this video anyway, so please, support the channel, subscribe to the channel if you've not already, give the video a like, and make sure you enable those notifications as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Where do you see 2021 being for cinemas? Will they be reopening, or will we just see more and more delays? Have a great day.